Joining me in studio is Claudia Bentel. She is gallery director at W17 Gallery. That sounds like the job of her dreams, okay? But she's going to tell us more. Claudia actually works with individuals. She works with organizations to curate art for homes, for corporate spaces and public environments, with a particular interest in how art can shape the way we experience space and atmosphere. All right. And I'm very excited to talk to her about the work that she does. Claudia, it's so wonderful to meet you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. And happy Women's Day.
Happy Women's Day to you. Happy Women's Day. And I was remarking to you on air about what a glorious time it is to have this type of conversation. Art being at the center of wellness and well-being and how we experience space, atmosphere in the workplace. But I want to start by getting a sense of, you, because I think this is such a wonderful space to move through. Art and using it as a tool for wellness. Tell us about your journey.
Thank you so much. It has been a journey. I was brought up in a very creative family, so I think it was always going to be part of what I was going to do in the creative realm. And I think as a start, art is not limited to the two-dimensional painting on a canvas or image framed. It can be performance art, dance, poetry, music. All of it is art. All of it is imperative, I would argue, to our survival, and does indeed infect our environments everywhere we go and with everything we do. So the visual art world would be what we're looking at and experiencing, but music as well. I mean, people are affected by what they hear around them, whether they're sitting in a restaurant or even in the workspace. And it affects your mood, it affects your productivity. How we measure that is close to impossible. But I would say that it is imperative to our survival. And my journey into it really began, in this particular role, with the co-founders of Workshop 17, as I had a conversation with them about art. And they said to me, we want you to do more with the art we have up in our workspace. We feel that creativity supports productivity, and they said, we don't want you to just do something and get a salary and have a job and be an employee. We want you to create something that stands on its own. And that was the kind of brief, and good luck and goodbye kind of thing, and sent me flying and have mentored me since then. And we've created this disruptive gallery which functions within the Workshop 17 spaces and outside of it. We really are working on how the role of art and our role can influence people in ways that are unexpected. We're not restricted by the traditional white cube gallery model, which I've worked in as well.
Yeah.
And I think that has made a big impact in what we've done. We're able to sit with what would have been gallery goers and viewers in the past, and in fact our members or tenants in the workspaces, and have intimate conversations with them about what they see on the walls, what they feel, what they think, to open up to conversations in an environment which is not intimidating for them, like a white cube can be, and where they feel comfortable having an opinion. And then off that, we will then respond to that with our curatorial exhibitions and invite them in to be part of it to some extent. And then, of course, also meeting artists and doing workshops, printmaking workshops and things like that within our spaces is very important. And we're starting to bridge that gap between the everyday workman, workwoman, and the elusive artist, which is, of course, not elusive, but we're bringing the worlds together in an unconventional way.
I think that is so incredible. And you're making me start to think of, I feel like you've got to be a certain type of person to appreciate this, because, a lot of organizational culture, if I can even attempt to call it that, is just get in, sit in your little cubicle and then go home. What do you mean art and it will help you do your job better? So perhaps we can talk about that, looking at particularly workspaces, and how it's also trying to solve a lot of well-being and mental well-being issues that people may be experiencing when they get into the workplace, and how important this work is beyond making the space just look good, but really creating productive spaces through art.
Well, I think art is the one platform which is rooted in subjectivity and opinion.
Yeah.
It invites you to share what that is. So if your workspace is making a concerted effort to display artworks on the wall, beyond just a decorative function,
Yeah.
and invites you in to look at what that might mean and who created it and where it comes from and where it's going, immediately says you matter and what you think matters.
Yeah.
So you're not just someone there pushing numbers and filing in and filing out. In fact, your embodiment and your sentiments and everything within that realm starts to engage with the environment you're in and the space, which then gives back to you. So it becomes like a cyclical ecology in and of itself, which it's extremely rewarding when you start to, after years of building these relationships, where you start to feel the reward of these interactions happen, and they become visceral, and it's really interesting and it's exciting to see, and also being able to be a conduit between, for example, a photographer and a interior designer and a big corporate client. So we've had these kinds of experiences where, like, the corporate client wanted artwork for their office wall and had consulted me in what do we have, investment pieces and things like that, and this sort of traditional briefing. But after sitting with them, I realized how passionate they were about the legacy of their business and their company, and how the people who made that company were in fact the most important part of that company, from truck drivers to spaza shop owners to factory workers and bakers, right up to the CEO. So I said to them, why don't we photograph these portraits and take these stories in, and why don't you display them as artworks alongside each other in your head office on one wall, and democratize, so you've got the truck driver next to the CEO next to the, and suddenly it opens up for a whole new level of conversation and becomes historical and a legacy in the company, and supported the photographer and supported the people who made the company, who make the company function. So that was like one example where we became this beautiful conduit for all these moving parts that are usually quite disparate, but we became a place that it could come together. And then we have other instances where, for example, we have an exhibition at the moment at one of the W17 locations in Rosebank. It's called Urban Chemistry, curated by artist Stephen Hobbs, and it's a group show with a number of photographers, and working within these various environments in Joburg particularly, and with communities. These photographers have the product is this exhibition where they've shown their take on the city and its transitory and transitioning spaces. So there's big themes that come out, like themes of home and belonging, and conduits, transportation, lack of transportation, connectivity, and none of it is saying this is what is right or wrong. All of it is saying this is who we are in this moment. What do you think? And that is the beauty, where we ask, that's what we're asking of tenants, members, people, everyday life. What do you think? This elicits a response. And I think that is the role we should be playing. And why it's important, it encourages critical thinking. And without critical thinking, where are we going? So I think that for me is why, and I think how we could possibly measure this difficult space of how does art support productivity.
Yeah. I love it, and I think it's so beautiful because there's something holistic about it, and there are different levels and various components to the work and the problems that you're solving with the work that you are doing at W17 Gallery. I want to say Claudia Bentel is actually gallery director at W17 Gallery, and we're looking at just holistic well-being in the workplace through art. And it's not simply just decorating spaces, but it's really about how people can start engaging in well-curated spaces so that people in the workplace can be more productive. My special guest in studio, Claudia Bentel. She is a gallery director at W17 Gallery. They are disruptive in the most wholesome way you could possibly imagine, really working with individuals, with organizations to make sure that they bring art closer to the people, and not just tangibly, but also cognitively. You know, what does art mean in where humanity is going? And what kind of workplaces are we building that not only incorporate wellness in a traditional sense, but look at the person's surroundings? I mean, we've got other conditions now that have become, quite conversational, and people are learning about them, the neurodivergent community, and all sorts of things that are happening. And we need to be putting ourselves in a position where we're using art to basically assist with making sure that everybody is included in the conversation. Everybody is included in workplace wellness dynamics, as it were. So it's such a good conversation. And to get a sense from you in the last segment, Claudia, about the organizations that you've worked with and how you are helping them think through what their philosophy is in the workplace, and how you are helping to bring the artwork into those particular philosophies. What does a well curated space look like? I mean, if you could give an example, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, I made an example off here about, how I just imagined a woman sitting in an admin office. Women are wonderful administrators, by the way. Sitting in an office, files and files for the last 30 years. That's all she's been seeing is handwritten notes, files, and a computer that is just densely packed with information. Not a single piece of art except the one that her 5-year-old daughter gave to her when she was still little, and now the baby is in varsity. So a space like that, for example, how would you well curate a place like that?
Well, I think if there's nothing on the walls, it's already a sign that that the notion that our visual world and our visual realm and our oral realm as well, the music I think is a big part as well. It doesn't matter to your well-being. So so the fact that there's nothing there is an issue, I think, already as a start. So it's about consideration. If it's considered, then what levels of consideration does one take? And it's difficult in shared spaces and mixed-use spaces because we're treading very a very fragile line between the private and the public. And where we have to think very carefully, like when someone goes into a white cube gallery, they already have an expectation of what they're going to see because they have agency of going to that gallery. They know what they're going to a specific show. They've made a choice. But if you're doing art at that level in a shared mixed use space that is a public space, you have to take into consideration the fact that people are not expecting to see what you might want them to see. And although I think our role must always push the boundaries to some extent in some way and in a healthy way, I think one needs to be considerate. So considering not only the individual using that space, because how do you cater for 1 million individuals in one space and their flavor of the day, and it's very subjective, but how do you do that, but how do you do it at a level that is considering them but also considering others? And I think that level of consideration is everything. I think the space between decorative art and all the other art out there is really where I think that a well curated space fits in. So, it falls in within good art and excellent art and evocative art that's
Right.
thought-provoking, that's interesting and different in various ways from its subject matter to its medium, versus just a very simple decorative something or other, which also has its place and its function. It's not asking you to do too much work when you look at it, which is also fine. That also has its place. But I think ultimately it wants to disappear into the background, whereas our role is to, at the gallery, is to promote art in a way that pushes you a little bit further in your thinking, asks you to ask more of where that comes from, why, and where it's going, to question, to propose new ways. I think that's a well curated space, and that can happen anything within a very kind of broad spectrum, from anything between a simple hand drawing to a very complicated multimedia work. So I think consideration is and then from that consideration is, for a well curated space, would be asking the people who work in that space, sitting with them and spending time with them. It's about relationships you build, because you might give them or show them something they didn't know they would like, and I think that's where the magic happens, because they didn't know it could exist, or that they were even allowed to like it, or why. And that's where these beautiful new ways of thinking and experiencing start to grow. So yeah, I would say consideration.
That's and for me, that sounds like it's something that should be built into the organizational culture, being considerate and wanting the opinions of the people that work there, and then take it from there, 100%. Claudia, thank you very much. It's just so unfortunate we've run out of time. We need
Thank you.
7 hours to talk about this, because there's so many layers to unpack. But if I am, fascinated by what I've just heard, and would like to, bring in the expertise of the gallery, and see how I can recreate and reimagine the workplace, not only for myself as the chief executive officer or the founder of the organization, but for those that are going to be working there. And I like what you brought in around, a building of institutional memory as well through this work. How can we find you? How does the consultation work?
Well, I have an email address, but you can follow us on Instagram, which is the W17 Gallery. And I think that would be the best place at the moment. We do have a website, which is at this stage sitting within the Workshop 17 website. But we do work within and outside of Workshop 17. So, and I would say to contact us and find out. We've done consultations for private clients with various budgets, to NGOs, to corporates, and we tend to, as much as possible, never say no. We always say maybe and how and solutions. So people do have a perception that you need a lot of money to do art well. You don't, and that we have shown in many, many instances of projects and special projects we've done. You need quite a lot of other things. I think value alignment is one very important one. But I think that would be the best way. I have an email address, which is claudia@workshop17.com. Otherwise, my Instagram.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. Workshop17.co.za.
.com.
Yes. is the website, and I mean, it's just the most incredible stuff that I'm seeing here.
Oh, sorry, yes, and on the website it's .co.za, and you'll find us there.
Absolutely. So workshop17.co.za if you'd like to find out more. They're also on Instagram, which is a wonderful space to be able to see the work. Thank you, Claudia. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.